our number 3 team in the country, your defending national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs, 14-1, winning everything last year, ending the 42-year curse of a title drought. They come back. It's fascinating because Stetson Bennett is in a doctoral program over there at Georgia right now. I think this is his 7th year of college football. It's the 6th year of NCAA eligibility, but if I read that right, he's been playing college football for 7 years now. They got a lot to replace. And I don't know how you take possibly one of the best defenses we've seen, at least in the last decade. Maybe maybe I want to almost go as far as calling it a generational defense, but I'll easily say that's the best defense we've seen probably in a decade. You only have 3 returning starters on that team. Nolan Smith, though, is back. That's huge for Georgia. Stetson Bennett, there's leadership there. And for the thing is, Georgia does one thing well. They produce running backs. McIntosh, he's back this year. They also have, oh gosh, I'm going to miss this, Milton coming back as well. But the kid that I'm excited for, the 17-year-old kid who enrolled in spring and his arms look like they're the size of a tree trunk, Branson Robinson. This guy is a monster. Remember this name because if that dude gets on the field, watch out. Number 3 in the country. I think the only reason why we're not having them at 1 and 2 is because you're going to have to replace 8 starters on that defense. So why don't you give me your take on your Georgia Bulldogs?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's great to be celebrating national championship. But you're right. When you have 15 players get drafted and you set a record, and most players drafted on defense by a single team in the first round, and sort of just going through all those accolades, that's a whole heck of a lot of players to really replicate on the field at the same time and get other young guys up to speed to play at that same level. You're going to have the Nolan Smiths who came back. Keely Ringo is coming in another year. I think he can actually get better. He had moments last year where he was not the perfect corner and had some chances, really some growing pains. Made the interception to steal the game, but still, I think Georgia fans can all agree, and I'm sure he even agrees, he can improve and get even better, become more of a lockdown corner himself. Jalen Carter, there's scouts and coaches who said he was even better than Wyatt and Davis at defensive line. So Carter now, how will he do it by himself? The other 2 tree trunks around him and the 3 guys in the middle of the field. Can he actually perform on his own? I think he can. And then you look at Chris Smith at safety, who returned the pick versus Clemson for a touchdown. No, he is another returner. And then from there, you look at the young guys who really haven't got on the field yet, or have been sparingly here and there or in blowouts. But where are they now? These high recruits, where are they going to actually show up? How are you going to get the McKeel Shermans, the Traceman Marshalls, Rain Davises, the Small Mondins, the Xavier Soris, David Daniels, Nealon Greens, Kamari Lassiter, Malachi Starks? The whole list goes on and on of all these 4 and 5-star highly recruited players who are now on campus. Now they're sophomores, they may be juniors or even freshmen walking in. Now you've got to live up to that standard, and you've got to be able to take it to the next level and play at a higher level. I got a feeling you will not see that generational defense this season. There will be growing pains. There will be times where they might give up 20, 25 points a game. The offense, though, is where the talent is returning. Stetson Bennett come back. Technically, it's his 3rd year as a starting quarterback now. Actually, say 2.5. He had the half year in 2020, learned a lot there. Obviously, last year still had a lot of doubters. I was one of them for a while. Went in and got the job done, and now he's coming back again. You got Arian Smith, McConkey, Mitchell, Jackson, Rosemary Jack Saint, and then you have Damian Blaylock, Dominic Blaylock, who's been injured for a couple of years, coming back. Receiver depth, you go 6, 7, 8 deep, and you have probably the deepest tight end room in the country with Eric Gilbert as the number 3, Bowers, Washington, and you bring Delpin as a recruited freshman. So you're gonna have four guys there, and you mentioned the running backs already. So the talent and offense is there, offensive line is there. They're gonna have to score points though. When your offensive coordinator gets paid $2 million and he's getting job offers and interest from other schools and and in the NFL and decides to stay, the pressure's on the offense now to score consistently. Not score in the fourth quarter when the defense has, sort of worn them down, but put up points early to help support that defense. Might be in a lot more shootouts where you're going to have to be able to step up. The talent's there on this team. The experience, I think the pressure of trying to win a national championship has now been lifted off the shoulders. You could see for many years, there's probably situations where teams you haven't won in a while where you guys just sort of you get tense because you haven't won it. The pressure from the fans, the pressure from the coaches, everything about winning national championship. Now that's gone, but then you have the pressure of repeating and defending your title. So it's going to kind of like a trade there. I think going into this season, they should be 7-0 going into the cocktail party. The one game that I will say beware of South Carolina on September 17th. It's going to be a noon kickoff. Columbia, South Carolina is going to be hotter than hell. Probably going to be 110 on the field. Make sure you start hydrating now. Be ready. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. And that game, you might get a lot of guys cramped. So you're going to be ready to play if you're on that team on that travel roster because if you're there, you're going to expect to get some reps. From there, the season is going to be, can you take care of Florida? It's still the cocktail party. Anything can happen in Jacksonville. You got the Vols. Now, anyone knows about Tennessee, Georgia history? Lately, especially. When Georgia goes to Knoxville, they usually take care of business in pretty impressive fashion. All the crazy nonsense, the upsets, happen when the Vols come to Athens. Whether it's 2004 when they came down there and beat them. 2007, they beat them. 2005, they beat them. And then we all know the Hail Mary in 2015, 2016. It's the weird stuff that happens when they come on the road. So be prepared for the Vols. They're going to be fired up. They won't have the crowd, but they actually might be more lethal because they don't have those distractions of the fans. It's just them on the road by themselves. So the fan base is going to show up in Sanford and be ready, but Dogs are going to be ready to go the week after Florida to take on the Vols. Mississippi State kind of in there a little bit, and then Kentucky. It's the back end of the schedule for Georgia that's going to be sure they are focused on and healthy enough to make it through. I think this team does get to Atlanta. They win the SC East. Tennessee does give them a push, but I think Tennessee's schedule is a little more difficult, and they might have a couple slip-ups there that could cause them to not surpass the Dogs. And then you're going to get your Georgia-Alabama SEC, championship game, rematch number 12, I think, about that point. And both teams will probably make the playoff and go from there.
Almost can feel like I'm going to parrot on everything that you said there. My question is more about the defense this year, where last year I felt like we knew the known quantity was how good the Georgia defense would be. Our questions were all on the offense. I actually think this offense is going to put up some points. I think that you're going to see a very traditional Georgia attack. They're going to run the football. They're going to use play action. They're going to hit the tight end, and they're going to take a couple of big plays downfield. I really think that they're going to be a more efficient offense. They might not be a 35, 42 points a game offense, but this is going to be we're going to probably put up 27, 28 points, and it's going to be enough for us to win almost every game getting off the bus. You look at the schedule, and I'm with you, Fresh. I'm looking at you're 7-0 going into the cocktail party. And if you're not, then something bad's happened along the way. Florida, you've owned that, and Smart's really taken that much more seriously these days. I don't think that they're underprepared for that. I would love to see what Napier brings into that rivalry right there. But realistically, I'm looking at the cocktail party against Florida and saying Georgia should be at least 17-point favorites in that game. These should be double-digit favorites. It's the same thing with week 1, September 3rd with Oregon. I had a buddy and friend of our show, Adam, text me about how everyone's excited for that Oregon game and it's the marquee game of the first weekend. I said, how can it be the marquee game of the first weekend when Georgia opens up as an 18.5-point favorite over another top 25 team? That's not a marquee game. And when you're 25.5 point or 18.5 point favorite there,
Ohio State knows marquee game.
Yeah, I know that, but that's just us talking here. This is a very, very good team. You're right. That 3-game stretch there, Tennessee is going to be a really hyped game because we both think that offense, if Tennessee is healthy going into Athens, that's going to be a fun one. At Mississippi State could be a letdown game. You have two really emotionally high games. Sooner or later, you're going to have to let yourself breathe a little bit. Usually Georgia at the back end of their schedule, and if I'm going back here, last year you had Charleston Southern the week before he played Georgia Tech. You don't have that FCS team at the end of the season this year. I mean, I guess you could call Georgia Tech an FCS team, but that's that. That Kentucky game is interesting too. Kentucky returns a lot of talent on that team, and the game is in Lexington. I don't necessarily think you're going to lose that game. I'm looking at their results from last year. The closest game Georgia had in the second half, outside of the 10-3 win versus Clemson, there's 27 points there. There's 24, 17. So they had a 17-point win over Kentucky at home. That was the closest. I think you're going to see a lot more games of them. And I agree with you. I think they're going to Atlanta. They're going to be representing the East in the SEC. I think we're going to get a great showdown with Alabama again. But expect this go around to see a lot of wins right around that 7-10 range, not the 17-24 range as well there. I still really like Georgia. There's a lot of talent. The Bulldogs fans have to be excited because now you can puff your chest out. You are one of the elite teams in the country. You are in the conversations with Clemson, and Clemson took a pretty big step back, but in the conversation with Alabama, with LSU, with Ohio State, with all the teams that have won the national title through the college football playoff, and say, we now have our seat at the table. It's a feel-good story. America really liked it because it had been so long for Georgia to win a title. It's that goodwill will last for a year or two, and then the fun stuff begins. The fun stuff begins when people start hating on you, because people don't hate on you if you're bad. Like, if you suck, you suck. And no one's going to be like, no one walks around unless you're a rival of, let's say, like James Madison. No one walks around being like, man, I hope James Madison loses this week. No one cares. No one says that.
No one hates Vanderbilt.
No one hates Vanderbilt. Yeah, exactly. That's the fun part. When people start telling you how much you suck, or that your team's not good, or you're, overrated, or blah, 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 it's because you are good. It's because there's a respect on the sports thing. That's still a year away for Georgia, especially if Georgia gets to the SEC title game this year. That'll be a fun one, but you still got Alabama in your conference. That's going to be a little bit tricky to deal with. Georgia's still a national title contender, even with all of the losses on the defense. There's only been a handful of times, and I had to look it up here fresh. It's extremely difficult to repeat as national champions. Only teams that have done it in the last couple of years, and if you look at the 2011 and the 2012, Crimson Tide did it. Even you go back before that, you take a look at USC technically did it in 03-04, although that 03 title is split with LSU. And then even further back, you have to go back to 94-95 Nebraska, the last times you can kind of see teams winning back-to-back national titles. Not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be a very, very difficult task for the Bulldogs. I'm going to say 11-1. I'm saying that one, I'll say this. They're going to go 12-0 in the regular season. First loss is going to be in the SEC title game, though.
Yeah, I think this team you're going to see a lot of names. If you're not too familiar with the program, you're going to see a lot of names you've never heard before on defense, and we're rotating a lot of guys in. If you want to know who they are, take a look at the recruiting classes right now from the past few years. That depth is there. Those guys will be getting a lot of playing time early and often.
All right.